Welcome, everybody. Glad to see you. In case you've never been to one of our SDP Connects, we do this every other week. I'm Judy Mark. I'm the president of Disability Voices United, which is an organization directed by and for people with disabilities and their family members. And one of our top priorities is the self-determination program. We were founded by a group of folks who helped to get the self-determination law passed. And we have done plenty of publications and conferences on the self-determination program. And you'll see in the chat information about the 2 books that we produced on the self-determination program, as well as information about where you can find the recordings of our 50 or more than 50 of these SDP Connects that we've done over the past couple of years. We started in July of 2020, so we're about to have our 2-year anniversary of doing these SDP Connects. We started because of the pandemic, and it's turned out to be really quite a great thing, even though the pandemic is most definitely not over. So welcome, everybody. We have the largest group of panelists we've ever had in the history of the SDP Connect, and we are so honored that they have all agreed to be on the program today. Today we are talking about participant choice specialists, which are those individuals who work at regional centers who are in charge of ensuring that people who are interested in the self-determination program are able to move into the program and to support the people who are already participating in the program. And we have 6 different regional centers represented today, which is so great. And I think that will give you a flavor of what's happening out there. I don't think that they can represent anything more than their own regional center, so we should all remember that. So if you come to this meeting today and you're saying, well, my regional center does it differently than these folks, they can't help you because they can only represent their own regional center. I can help you though. Like, I want to hear where you have concerns, and we can use that in our advocacy. But remember, these are just the folks can represent their own regional center. So the first thing I want to do before we let them talk is just very, very briefly share my screen. And I need to start the PowerPoint right after I do that. Yes, this is correct. And then I'm going to go to slideshow and play from start. All right, please tell me what are you seeing, Ed? Are you seeing just the slide, or are you seeing a weird other thing? Or anyone? What are you guys seeing? Anyone can tell me.
It looks great.
I can see the slides.
Are you seeing a whole set of slides at the bottom, or are you seeing just one slide? One slide. Excellent. You never know. I have 2 screens. You never know what's going to happen. Thank you. Okay. So participant choice specialists, what are they? So DDS in last year's budget created the job of participant choice specialists and are funding each regional center for 3 staff members who are going to be working specifically in the areas of self-determination and participant-directed services. Today, we're not talking about participant-directed services. We're only talking about the self-determination program. But the reason why these positions were created is to ensure that people who are served by regional centers have as much choice and options in their lives and in the services they receive. And so they've created these specialist positions so that there are people that service coordinators can go to, that people with disabilities and their families can go to ask questions. What's very clear is they're not also service coordinators. They do not have a caseload. They only work in these areas. But not all of them are going to be the kind of people you're seeing, at your local advisory committee meetings. They're not necessarily the people who show up at your meetings. Sometimes they're the people who are working in the accounting department in the back room, because the way that the accounting system works for self-determination is very, very different than the traditional system. So they've been able to have, this really gives regional centers the opportunity to have a dedicated staff member in the accounting department to make sure that people are getting paid better, more quickly. All right, so moving on, let me see if I can I have to do it this way. Okay. So one of the most important things is that they are making sure that accurate information is provided to regional center staff, people with disabilities and their family members, and hopefully all getting the same information. That's certainly something that we talk about a lot at Disability Voices United, is that we're all learning together. There's a lot of people who don't have a lot of experience in the self-determination program, including a lot of service coordinators, and then we're all getting the same information to be able to move forward in the program together. Informing, they are also there to inform the regional center and all the rest of us about what kinds of services are allowable and not allowable in the spending plan. I'm sure there will be lots of questions about that today, since a lot of regional centers do it differently. They are also there to provide the training to service coordinators and other regional center staff, particularly those who are involved in the fair hearing process, about the principles of self-determination, about how services are obtained, and the rights of SDP participants. By the way, this is not my language. This is language directly from DDS. We did not make any of this up. I want to point out that the trainings that they conduct may be provided with the local advisory committee members. I would hope that they all would be doing this. I certainly, in the regional centers where we assist, we strongly urge regional centers to include their local advisory committee members in the trainings of staff, of service coordinators and staff, so that they're hearing directly from the folks who are most impacted. They are also responsible for ensuring that their regional centers are meeting the enrollment targets and benchmarks. Now, if you're going to ask me, what are they? Like, what are those targets? The regional centers haven't even been told what they are yet, but I'm assuming that at some point in the near future, they will be told. So they may be, particularly around ensuring that there are no disparities between people of color and white people, that particularly Latinos who are facing a lot of disparities in enrollment are getting enrolled. They're also supposed to help identify any concerns and the barriers to enrollment and try to break down those barriers. And they are also supposed to be providing the training. So they're going to be helping with the orientations for new members. And they're also going to be providing sort of the ongoing training, or at least working with their local advisory committee to be providing the ongoing training. They're also responsible for developing and implementing an outreach and training plan for diverse communities. This is what I was talking about, where right now we're seeing an enrollment that Latinos are particularly under-enrolled in the self-determination program. So what one of their roles is to maybe show up to school districts, to parent support groups, to self-advocacy organizations, and ensure that people know about the self-determination program and have the opportunity to enroll if they're interested. They're also supposed to obtain input from stakeholders about the effectiveness of the trainings. And the stakeholders that DDS is talking about are people with developmental disabilities and their family members. They're also supposed to be completing a review of participant budgets that exceed a specified threshold. I am interested in hearing from the participant choice specialists to see if they've been given any guidance, any more specific guidance on that from regional centers. Because I have not heard where that threshold is. But what that means is DDS is going to come up with a dollar amount, and for all of those budgets, individual budgets that are at a certain level, they're going to be reviewing those budgets, comparing them to what these individuals would have been receiving in the traditional system, and then looking at whether there are ways of ensuring that the costs in the self-determination program are not higher than they should be. Right. You should know that the law, the self-determination law says that people are not supposed to be spending more in the self-determination program than they would in the traditional system. And in fact, the regional centers are required to actually certify that. If you've ever heard the term certified budget, that's what they're certifying, is that this amount would have been spent in the traditional system. Another thing that you may not know that they're doing is that they're supposed to be ensuring that all eligible consumers and their families apply for Medi-Cal. This is new. This is like a very big deal because right now at some regional centers, people try to apply for Medi-Cal. They want to get on IHSS, and there are a lot of barriers for them to participate. And so these are individuals who will help you, who will get you the right information. If you need advocacy, they're supposed to be helping you access that information. All right, so next, we're going to go to the panel. I'm going to stop sharing when we get to the panel so that you can see everybody outside of this screen, but I'll do a very quick introduction of our 8 panelists. And I just once again want to thank them tremendously for joining us today. So the first panel, and this is in alphabetical order, not in priority of anything. But Liz Diaz is here from Valley Mountain Regional Center, Silvia Haro from North Los Angeles Regional Center, Sheila Keys from Redwood Coast Regional Center, Brendali Maldonado from Eastern Los Angeles Regional Center, Michele Poaster from Valley Mountain, Angie Shear from Valley Mountain, and you'll hear Valley Mountain has different, each of them play a different role. So we're very excited that their whole team is here with us. Randall Smith from Westside Regional Center, and David Webb-Rex from San Diego Regional Center. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to stop sharing so that everybody can see the screens much more easily. And hold on, now I need to get to my other page. So thank you all again for joining us. I want to let everybody know before we move forward that we do record all of this. It is available on it will be available within about a week or so on our YouTube channel and on our interchange, which is theinterchange.org. And we have one on communication and one on self-determination. And you can see all of our SDP Connects from the past 2 years, the recordings on there. So let's get started. The participant support choice specialists who are joining us today have varying levels of experience working on the self-determination program. So I am definitely going to start with Sheila Keys, who is the most experienced because she worked in the self-determination pilot project. So many of you newcomers may not know that people keep saying that self-determination is new. It's not new. It's been around for well over 20 years. It was a pilot project in 5 different regional centers, including Redwood Coast Regional Center. And Sheila has been she's taught me a whole lot, even while we were trying to get the self-determination program up and running, the full program up and running. And so, Sheila, I'm going to post the first question to you. Oh, and I should tell folks how are you going to ask a question of our panelists? You can put it in the chat, and both Ed and Kira are going to be monitoring the chat, and we'll ask questions when we're ready. You can also, we'll give you a chance to raise your hand. You raise your hand by going down to the bottom of the screen, clicking on reactions, and then choosing raise hand like you see over me. All right. And what we'll do is we'll allow you to unmute yourself. Right now, everybody is muted, with the exception of our panelists, in order to keep our webinar quiet, because we have interpretation in both Spanish and Korean today. So, oh, I should also say, I'm sorry, I forgot to say this. Please select a language. You will need that because I'm certain we will be getting questions in Spanish. You do that by going down to interpretation and choosing English, Spanish, or Korean. You English speakers, you must choose a language or you will not be able to hear when the interpreters are speaking. So you must choose a language. All right, so let's start with you, Sheila. So how many years have you been working in the self-determination program?
So I was fortunate enough to start in the pilot back at literally the turn of the century, right? So
Wow.
in 2000, I began as a, I think we called it broker at the time. So I got to do one of the roles helping people plan for the self-determination pilot here at Redwood Coast. And then I did that for a few years. And as I watched self-determination not get past statewide for several rounds, I took some other paths for a while, and was very excited this past few years when it actually found its feet again, and it's become a reality for people throughout the state of California. So we crafted our own, mute my phone. We crafted our own pilot, set things up much the way the state has set them up for everyone now. So we had outside the regional center FMS agencies, and as a broker, I was not doing the service coordinator role. We still had the person had their same service coordinator, and we came up with person-centered plans and figured out how to find out how much money that would cost. And basically, and that took a while, the first few rounds, and then we got the hang of it. And so we were fortunate because we worked with a really fabulous financial management service and had lots of different options. And so I was quite excited because it really was people taking control and having the freedom and authority to directly purchase all the services and supports that they needed. And over the past 20 years, I've watched as the people who stayed in the pilot, even though we didn't have options for other people throughout the state, they've become so used to self-determination that when I came around a couple of years ago and asked them to talk about it, what was different before and after self-determination, they couldn't do it. They had just become so used to the way things are for them, being in self-determination and having all that, control and authority and freedom to do things their way, that they're like, I don't know that I could actually answer that very well. And so seeing people get real lives the way they want them has been just amazing. And now being able to be a part of self-determination, I helped do the rollout and took on the participant choice manager role here at Redwood Coast so that I could try to help lay that foundation and try to make it as true to the principles of self-determination as possible. There's a lot of bureaucracy that had to be attached to get the money from the federal government and through the state. And so it's not as fabulous as I would have liked it to be, but it was a necessary component. And so how do we make it work so that we really are giving people that next step forward in the civil rights movement that self-determination is to the most extent possible. And so.
Thank you, Sheila. That was amazing. I love that you called it a civil rights movement because we certainly think of it that way. We so appreciate that. So let me now turn to Liz. Liz Diaz from Valley Mountain Regional Center. When you're speaking with people with disabilities and family members, how do you describe the self-determination program? Why do you think this is a great option for people, and how do you talk about it? Oops, you have to unmute. Oh, you can't unmute? Let's see. No, you're a co-host. Let's see. Is it working? There we go. There we go.
Thank you. So thank you for having me. And so we start with our orientation, but when we have families that ask, like, what is self-determination? It's always good to explain that there's different delivery service options available to them, and self-determination is one of them. And just talking about the 5 principles that self-determination has for them and all the great things that come about it, the freedom, they are really in charge of their lives. They're the ones leading their plans. They're the ones telling us how they want to live, and just explaining, like, think about how you want your life to look and list, what supports and services you think would make your life better, and just list them. And then we'll talk about it, and we'll see if that's a possibility under the self-determination waiver. And we talk about those things, and we say, that's what self-determination is. You're going to tell us what are the things you need? And we're going to say, okay, how do we get there? And let's plan for how do we get there. So I think it's a very different model than sitting down in a meeting and saying, here's what we have to offer to you as a regional center. We're saying, you know, what do you have and how can we help you get there?
Right.
It's being led by the participant. I think it's explaining it that way, because if you explain it the way that we have been trying to, honestly, when we started, it's a very hard concept to understand for families. I think explaining it that way has been the easiest way for people to understand what self-determination is.
Thank you. That's really interesting. Wondering if Angie, no, I gotta go to a different regional center. Sorry, Randall. Randall Smith, you mentioned that you're one of the newer people. You've only been a participant choice specialist for a few months. So you're on the opposite end of where Sheila is.
Yes.
But so why did you become a participant choice specialist, and what is it that you think is important for folks to know, and why it's a good program or good option?
Well, I had interest in the program. You know, I came to this position from being a service coordinator, and as a service coordinator, I had a couple of my participants on my caseload enter self-determination. So I kind of helped with, you know, the process of transitioning, and I had interest in it. I thought it was a very, you know, cool, well thought out, you know, program that you know could be available for our participants. So when I saw the job opening, I went for it. So.
And so why do you think self-determination is cool? Like what's great about it?
Because I think that as many opportunities that our traditional model can offer, it doesn't fully capture everyone's needs. And I think that self-determination can kind of provide more flexibility, more freedom, more chance to kind of be in control of, you know, how the funding for your services are spent, who they're spent through, the providers you use. So I think it's a cool concept.
That's great. So I'm going to move on to a second question and call on some of the others. So as I'm sure you know, there's been a lot of folks who are very have been frustrated at some of the ways that self-determination is currently rolling out. I mean, you heard Sheila talk about how one of the reasons that it's more bureaucratic than the pilot is because the program now gets federal funding, which it wasn't before. And so once you start getting federal funding, things become a lot more complicated and a lot more forms and a lot more requirements. But we still think that, you know, things could improve. And I know that everybody on this, all of our panelists agree. But what do you see as some of the biggest challenges that participants are having right now? And I'm going to throw this to Brendali. What are you seeing some of the big challenges that participants are having?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I think it really depends on family to family. There are a lot of different challenges that are happening. It depends on the individual, but what we are seeing here at ELARC is the information overload in the beginning, because the orientation is so vast, it's so huge, right? So how do we break that up so that you are able to digest the information and really learn how to move forward? Because there's expectations. There's a lot of expectations from families that once I take the orientation, I'm in, or that I'm gonna be in within a few weeks. And it's really teaching the families that there is a process. It's a long process sometimes, and there's a lot of things that go into it. So there's a lot of, the FMS is another barrier or challenge right now. And it is a statewide situation that we are all aware of. But I would say the FMS, I would say the fact that we need to implement better training. And that's something that we're working on here at ELARC, is not just providing the orientation, but on top of that, providing maybe clinics and providing workshops and ways that families can really understand how does a budget work. It's not as easy as coming together and creating a budget within a week or two. There's going to be things involved. If there's new services that are going to be needed, there may be an assessment need, right? So that may take a few weeks We have to look at HCBS assessments and things like that, things that in the orientation, families get that information, but sometimes it's really hard to retain that information because it's so much at one time. So to really train the families to let them know that this is the process and to be transparent. I'm very transparent with families during orientation. And I tell them, listen, a process could be anywhere from 3 months to 9 months. And I'm just being very honest, depending on everything that goes into the initial process of going into self-determination. So that's a challenge that we see. It's really informing families of the expectations, what you can expect going into the program.
Yeah, thank you. I want to ask that same question to Silvia Haro from North LA Regional Center. What do you see as some of the big barriers that the prospective participants are facing as they're trying to go in? And then also maybe I'll throw in participants who are going into their second and third years.
Okay, so like Brendali said, the information overload sometimes intimidates the families. So it's really trying to communicate with families again once they attended the orientation, and advising them to take it one step at a time. So that's a barrier that we see. There's some people that come, get intimidated, and we don't hear from them. So I know that at North LA, we try to follow up with individuals that have attended orientation to see where they are with the process, if they're interested in returning. The other barrier that we see is that there's a learning curve with our service coordinators. So at North LA, we have specialists, participant choice specialists who are there for the service coordinators and for the families to serve as consultants, neutral party, but the decision maker, still the service coordinator. They're still part of the IPP process. So I have seen delays where the families are requesting something, but they're waiting for the specialist to answer that question. And it's really something that the service coordinator can answer. So there's definitely a learning curve. We are training our service coordinators and offering refreshers every month so that they can understand, so that it's not a barrier in the future. The program is not new, like you said, but there's changes. I started working with the self-determination program back in 2020, and it's changed a lot in this last 2 years. So we're constantly pivoting. And the specialists get it right away when there's a new guidance, but it takes a while for the service coordinator to understand, okay, now we're asking you to do this because there's new guidance from DDS that, we did this certain way and now we have to change it a little. So that's when I say that there's learning curves, constantly facing changes. For second and third years, the barriers that we've seen at our regional center is that we do have to start planning ahead of time. We were short-staffed, another barrier, for a while where we only had one person in our accounting department. So second and third years, we needed to start planning. We realized we needed to start planning at least 3 months in advance so that they had their second or third year budget ready, approved, certified, and their spending plan reviewed and sent over to the FMS. You're muted, Julie.
I muted myself because there's a helicopter flying over my house right now and I didn't want to bother people. It's very annoying. So yeah, I've heard a lot of those barriers and appreciate those. And I'm wondering, Angie from Valley Mountain, Angie Shear, do you see those same barriers up at Valley Mountain? What are your ideas for removing some of those barriers?
We do. We have seen a lot of the same types of barriers. We're working really hard. Like you mentioned, our approach is unique in how we are addressing each of the individuals, and we come in as a team. And our participant choice specialists actually are doing most of the self-determination work itself. It's not, our service coordinators are not having to do a lot of that. So the person-centered planning and all of that kind of thing is happening to help at the same time. So there isn't as much of a learning curve for the service coordinators. The participant choice specialists get it right away, and they have that knowledge to help break down some of those barriers. We have also started implementing at least 2 to 3 months for the second and third year individuals. We start their IPP meeting 2 to 3 months before their spending plan is due to end. That way, like Silvia said, they can be ready to go when the new year starts. We're finding there has been the barrier that all of us are experienced with the FMS providers. And that's, I think the only thing we can do to overcome that is to be able to get more FMS providers in the state. There's such a outcry for this service and for self-determination as a service delivery at least in our area, that Liz and I, who are not participant choice specialists, it's hard to keep up. And our participant choice specialists are doing multiple meetings a day just to get people in the program. We are booking out into August so that we can get people enrolled. And as frustrating as that is, it's a barrier because we can only do so much so fast. So.
Yeah, it is. For some folks, it's like life and death. Like if they're planning on, getting a nursing staff that's not in the traditional system. And so I share your frustration. It's hard. And we want you to succeed, and we want the program to succeed. And the program will not succeed if the regional centers don't have trained staff who understand what to do. So I appreciate that. Now I'm kind of turning now, even though some of you have actually expressed this, to discuss what you as regional centers see are your barriers. Because when we advocate to reduce barriers, we're not only advocating to reduce barriers that participants and families face. We want to reduce the barriers that regional centers face, as well as FMSs and IFs. We want to reduce all the barriers in the program. And so I'm wondering, David Webb-Rex from San Diego Regional Center, what do you see as some of the barriers that you at the regional center are facing that, could be helped, whether it's systemically or, if you could talk to DDS and say, do one thing, like this would really help the regional centers do a better job on the self-determination program. What are you seeing as some of your big barriers, David?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for inviting me here today. What we're really focused on at San Diego is really, I guess one barrier is just getting the word out there in the community, because about self-determination as a whole, because there's some people in the community who are so energized about it. They've heard about it. They've accessed the resources, providers, families, other professionals. But there's some people out there who they're starting at zero, so really getting resources out there and getting the word out there of what this new program is and what the options potentially are for participants and for families and for providers too. Providers want to know what, especially if it's a provider that had been, participants don't have to use a vendor in self-determination, but they're welcome to. So some of our vendors want to know, like, what is this new, they'll come to me and say, David, I had a family approach me, they're in self-determination, we want to get on board. What does this new, what is this new thing? What does it look like? So that's really what we've been focusing on is now, with it being open and available to the entire state, coming up on 1 year now. Just really, really embracing the volume of interest and getting the word out there to those underserved communities and communities that haven't heard about it yet.
That's great. I have to tell you, it is astonishing to me when I run into people that sometimes I don't even know them. I meet them at a party, or, not that I'm going to parties nowadays, but I meet them at something that where I'm not here, there is in my role as DVU, and I'll talk about the self-determination program and they'll be like, I never heard of it. I mean, honestly, everybody's supposed to have gotten some information on it at their annual IPPs. And so it's frustrating. It's frustrating when people don't know about it. Thank you for that, David. I want to ask that same question to Michele. Michele, what do you see as some of the barriers that the regional centers are facing that end up being problematic for families and self-advocates?
So some of the barriers that we're seeing is the families having full understanding of the process, because they, it's a great program, and it's just understanding the full process that, okay, you've taken the orientation, what is the next step, and really understanding that whole piece. One thing that we've also are, doing is helping them understand what the Ladderman Act is, because a lot of families don't even understand just the beginning of everything. The next big barrier that we have is finding providers versus, and even going into the providers versus the vendors. And so many families are looking for services, and they're having a very difficult time trying to find that.
Oh, that's interesting. We have done a whole SDP Connect on that issue, because that is a very huge barrier for sure. I wanted to ask this basic question, which is, what is one piece of important advice that you would have for people who are entering the program for the first time? And I wanted to give, have I called on everybody? I called on Liz, I called on Silvia, I called on Sheila, Brendali. I'm going to pronounce your name right. Michele, Angie, Randall. Yes, I did. Okay. So I'm going to go through you guys in alphabetical order. I'm going to ask you all this question. What is the one piece of advice that you could offer to people who are not yet in the program, but as they're transitioning in? And I'm going to start with Liz. Liz, what is that one piece of advice you'd have?
So I have to keep it to one. So
yes, because you have to leave room for all the other people.
Okay, I'll keep it to one. Get informed. So, log into DBU, go into the orientations, ask your regional center to provide us much information about self-determination, read about it, go into the DDS website, just get informed as much as you can.
Thank you, very helpful. Silvia, same question. What is your one piece of advice for people entering the program for the first time?
I would say, do not get overwhelmed with the orientation. There are steps you have to take to transition into the program. Take a snapshot, write notes on what steps you need to take, and just check each step as you go in. So don't get overwhelmed or discouraged.
Thank you, that's great. All right, same question to Sheila.
So in addition to those things, I would recommend that you focus more on the support and the plan and how you want your life to look than on the money. Money does not make a good life. It's what you do with the money, using that plan, that will help you get the life you're looking for. And I see a lot of folks, anxiety through the roof. It won't be enough to meet my needs. I get that. We've walked through that. And so we try to match people to other folks who've been doing it a while, and that helps a little bit. But if you really focus on the plan and what's in it and how you're going to be an excellent place to work, if you need support workers, that kind of thing. But to try hard to focus more on the plan than the money.
I'm so glad you said that, because we say that all the freaking time. And it is very frustrating. And I, what I say all the time is, if you're trying to hire a person-centered planner or somebody to help you transition who's promising you, we're going to increase your budget, we're going to give you tons of money so you can buy lots of things and do lots of things, run away from them as fast as you can. Because the person you should be hiring to help you move into the program is the person who said exactly what Sheila just said, which is, what is it you want to do in your life? And let's figure out a way to make that happen. Some of it will be paid for out of the self-determination program, but as your independent facilitator, we can look at other options so that you can meet your life goals. And remember that not everything in your person-centered plan costs money. And person-centered plan is about hopes and dreams, things that are possible in your life. And my son's first person-centered plan, his number one goal was to hang out with his grandfather more. That cost nothing. And so, but that was what was important to him at that time. So it is really, don't be so focused on increasing your budget. I know that there are many underserved individuals in our system, and you should be getting the services that you have a right to get. I totally get that, but it's more important that you achieve the goals that you have set for your life. That is the most important thing, right? And we'll figure out how to get you there. Thank you for that. Okay, moving on to Brendali. What is your one piece of advice?
I don't know how I could top that.
I know,
that was amazing.
Sheila's amazing. I know, it's really hard for you guys to compete with Sheila. I get that.
I would say trust the process. Just trust the process. It's a long process, and just trust it and have a good communication with your coordinator. If you don't have good communication with your coordinator, fight for that communication. Go to the supervisor, go to the, if for ELAR, go to the chief, like it's unacceptable when we hear that service coordinators are not getting back to families. That's not okay. And we have a 24-hour return phone call policy and an email return. So have that communication, but trust the process, that it will take a while and that is okay. You will get there. Have some patience. I know that's not, I didn't want to use that word because some of you have been waiting for years, and I understand that, but trust the process and that you will get there.
Thank you. And I have an amendment to what is flying over my house right now. It is actually the Goodyear blimp, and it is like directly above my house, and it's so freaking loud. So I apologize if you're hearing any background noise, and I'll try to keep myself on mute when others are speaking. Okay, Michele Poaster, what is your one piece of advice?
So the one piece of advice I have as a participatory specialist and as a parent of a child in the self-determination program, is find the value in each service that you really are wanting. Make that value really important, because it's like we've said, it's really important to get the value. And when you find something that's valuable to my child and to me as a parent, it's amazing where things can go. I mean, right now we just had a huge socialized party, and you guys didn't even hear anything. So that's like a huge hooray for me. You had no clue we were having a socialization party going on here. So yeah, so I would say find the value in all your services.
That is so great. And so Michele is the parent of a participant in the self-determination program. So you get now a step up and then everybody else because of that. Okay, Angie, what is your one piece of advice?
Well, you kind of actually hit on it a little bit, Judy, but look at what you want for your life. Think about what is the most important for you at this time. Your life is constantly changing and evolving, and it's not going to be the same in 5 years it is now. So look at what you want in your life now and strive for your goals to help you obtain what it is that you want, and how the program can help support that.
That's great. Thank you, Angie. So same question to Randall.
Hello again. I would say when searching for an independent facilitator, keep in mind the visions you have for what you want. And then, don't be afraid to speak to a few potential facilitators so you can match, the person that you want and can kind of help you reach those goals. Someone that you're very comfortable with, you think would be a good fit, and can kind of help you, reach those things.
Thank you. Thank you, Randall. And then finally, David, sorry, your last name starts with a W and I did this in alphabetical order. So what is your one piece of advice?
That is okay. I was just thinking that my name starts with a W and all the good advice was taken. I guess my one piece of advice would be, well, there's been some great advice already, but my one piece of advice would be to be comfortable asking questions, because there is a lot that goes into self-determination, but also self-determination is a great opportunity to think outside of the box and to be creative. So I mean, especially here in San Diego, ask us questions like, can this be in my spending plan? Can this, what, can I do this? Can I do that? Because we want to get there with you. So ask lots of questions, take in all the information you can, and engage with us on that thinking outside of the box creativity piece, because that's my favorite part of SDP.
Thank you, David. So we have a lot of people with hands up. So I had one more question, but I'm going to go to the public here and get their questions. So we have a lot of hands up, and we also have a lot of questions in the chat. So because I'm biased, I'm going to call on Tim Jin first. So as a self-advocate, go ahead, Tim. What is your question for everybody?
Hi all, I have a question for you all. How often do you see people being told that self-determination is too complicated for them? I know when I wanted to start the program 3 years ago, my regional center was telling me that the traditional system was far better for me. But since I started self-determination, my stress levels are lower than ever.
Who wants to take that one? Thank you, Tim. Anyone can start. Brendali?
I have actually a personal experience. I have a sister-in-law that's part of another regional center, not ELARC. And about pre-pandemic, I want to say about 5-6 years ago, I was in her IPP meeting with her, and her service coordinator handed her some information about self-determination, but quickly said, oh, but this isn't for you. So just go ahead and sign it and we talk about it. And she wasn't aware that actually I was working directly under Elizabeth Haro being trained on self-determination. And I felt bad. I didn't want to make her feel bad. So I just stayed quiet. And then afterwards I had a conversation with my sister-in-law and I explained what self-determination is. And I thought that it would be perfect for her. So I did hear a lot of that, unfortunately. And in the beginning, about 3 years ago, when we were doing the orientations for those individuals that were selected by DDS, we did hear anxiety from staff and saying, well, how can this be better? I would say that culture is contagious, and you want to have a culture of positivity. And when we, because we've had the pilot for so many years, and those of us that were doing the info sessions way back in the day, we were so positive about it. We really started to want to infect everyone else with that positivity of this can be a great thing. And no, it is traditional services can be better for some, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's better. It's just a different option. And so we tried really hard to implement that and talk to our staff about the positives of it. And whenever I hear that from folks outside of different regional centers or folks outside, I'm the first one there to say, wait, hold on, no, I love self-determination. I've been passionate about it for many years. So I would say that you can't say one is better than the other, because it's all about the individual and it's all about what's best for them. And providing everyone with the two options and having them choose what would be better for them. That's just my experience.
Thank you, Brendali. Anyone else want to chime in there on this issue of discouraging people? Randall, go ahead.
I would say, kind of speaking as, I was just an SC 2 months ago, from that perspective, what I found came up a lot of times on my caseload was participants and parents didn't seem to have all the correct information. It seemed like they had part of the information and some of the other information was kind of jumbled a little bit. So once I slowed everything down, kind of explained everything, kind of let them know what self-determination is and what it isn't, I found that people were much more open to it. Not necessarily that they would do it, but at least with the information that they had on what it actually was, they were much more open to considering it.
Thank you, Randall. Anyone else want to chime in before we go to our next question? Just like wave your hand if you want to, and I'll call on you. Go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, I agree with Randall. I mean, I haven't been a service coordinator in a while, but service coordinators contacted me a lot to ask for information. And I think not knowing exactly what self-determination is and not understanding it creates anxiety for service coordinators. And I think that's where that comes from. So I think as regional centers, we just need to do a better job training our staff and providing them with that information. I know we're doing that, going into each team during their team meetings and providing small group just informational meetings for our staff. But I'm seeing the stress level and the anxiety just get lower and lower. But in the beginning, it was huge. And I think that's where that information probably came from.
That's great. Yeah, I change is hard. This is a very significant paradigm shift. Paradigm is not a plain language word, but it basically is a total change in the mindset of the way regional centers have traditionally worked for over 50 years. And so in some cases, you're going to have service coordinators who are just like, well, why wouldn't you just choose from among the 3 or 4 service providers who can offer you this? I don't understand why you would want to go through this process of self-determination. And this is why these amazing folks who are on with us today are going to be the game changers for us. They're going to be the paradigm shifters. Sheila, I just saw you on mute. Did you want to chime in on this?
Yeah, just a little bit. I think that yeah, kind of piggyback on what you and Liz were saying, that the anxiety and service coordinators' lack of understanding, and maybe to some extent feeling a little bit threatened or whatever, but there's also a fear. They fear that something might happen that isn't perfect or whatever. And, the reality is that happens in all kinds of service settings, and it's not unique. It's no different in self-determination. But oftentimes a service coordinator's previous experiences will influence how they talk about it. And so we don't have enough service coordinators with enough experience to really be able to share that forward. And so I don't honestly know, Tim, how often that's happening, because I'm not at everybody's meetings, but I'm afraid that it's happening more often than I would be happy with. But I think it's actually more likely because of the service coordinator's lack of understanding and awareness than because they think the person is not capable. If I did hear that was the conversation, they know they'd be hearing from me.
Thank you, Sheila. All right, I'm going to go to another person, Claudia Maron. I asked you to unmute. Claudia, are you there? Claudia, did you have a question? Okay, let's move on to Jan Robinson. Go ahead, Jan.
Yes, my question is for the budget preparers. I heard Angie say that about 3 months prior to the end, that they go in and they prepare the budget, they meet with the families, get the budget together, et cetera, et cetera. So in that, for the second and foregoing years, my question is, the existing year's budget, is it rolled into the forward year's budget and counted as part of that bottom line total? Or is it still a separate line item that is from the prior year, since the year hasn't ended? Do they just add it in there, thereby over the long run reducing the total budget after a while, or how does that work?
Sorry, I had to unmute because I think that it has gone away now. I think we are now in silence. I'm so happy. Who would like to answer that of our panelists? Oh, okay, Angie, go ahead, Angie. I got Angie, I have David and Silvia. Go ahead, Angie.
Since that's actually my part of our team within Valley Mountain Regional Center, when we're creating the budget, when we are doing it 2 to 3 months early, we are not making it so that the person loses that money. I look at what money has not been spent from the previous year, and that is actually added back in on the line item as an unused portion from that previous year. So that money does not get lost. It doesn't become more money for the next year. It balances out to equal what they started with. Does that answer your question, Jan?
Semi, but actually it doesn't balance out, because let's say you are paying for something monthly and it's a recurring, because my two have some recurring costs, and let's say it's $100 a month. If you're doing the budget at 9 months, those $300 aren't unused money because it's already allocated.
I add it back in as if it wasn't used. So it ends up, I say that if it was $1,200 for the year and you hadn't spent $300, then that $300 is added back.
That can become an accounting nightmare.
Well, it's not really, because this is just in the establishment of your individual budget that is going to be starting 3 months into the future, right?
Right.
And that budget is created by saying, we, the regional center, certify that budget would be, that this is how much would be spent anyway. So it's not like they're having to say, make this stuff up. I mean, these are things that are actually going to be spent.
Right, but will it reduce what I'm wondering? Let's say that a person had a budget for 100,000
Mhm,
and they still had stuff that's already appropriated
mhm,
for the, those months.
mhm.
But let's say it's 5,000 that's unspent, but it will be spent by the end of that year.
Mhm.
Will that budget then be 105,000 to allocate for that?
No, it's
Or
not going to be more. Let me, David, why don't you take this one next?
Yeah, absolutely. These are some great questions, and I'm actually really glad that you asked this. Thank you so much. So how we at San Diego, how we would calculate a year 2 or a year 3 is kind of how we nicknamed it. Just like other regional centers, sounds like they're doing something similar. We do start a little bit early just for the sake of paperwork, making sure no one wants to be doing anything at the last minute or at the 11th hour. So like a month or 2 months or 3 months ahead of time, we're starting to work on that paperwork and getting things ready. And to specifically to answer your question about how money is considered during that time. So on our forms, we have a section specifically in our year 2 budget that would be seen that, to people in San Diego, they would see this on their budget meeting, that specifically addresses this question about are there funds that have not yet been expenditured, have not yet been spent, will be spent, wouldn't be appearing on the FMS statements, et cetera, et cetera. And so we can look at that case individually. We can talk to the FMS, we can talk to the family, we can look at the case as a whole, and find those purchases. So you said like the recurring $100 payment. So we would include that there. Be like, yeah, like that's, no penalty there. We know that those purchases are coming because it's been recurring, and we can consider that in the budget calculation. To answer your question, you gave the example of the $100,000 budget example, and would it then become 105? So there's no, I call it no rollover. There's no rollover effect in budgets. We like that 3 month ahead of time, that's us preparing for the next year. So you're still living in your current budget year to the end of your budget year. And then a little bit ahead of time, we're getting all of our paperwork ready to prepare you for the next year. And all of it is occurring within 12-month blocks, 1 year blocks of budget time.
but then it's not unused then, right? It's not considered unused money. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. I mean, if you had expenditures upcoming, yeah, we wouldn't be considering that unused, especially in your example, like the recurring payments. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Great question, Jan. That's been coming up a lot. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
Ed, are you the one asking questions today or Kira?
We can do either. I didn't discuss with them, so
All right. Why don't you grab one, Ed, and then next time I'll go to Kira.
Absolutely. So our first question is from Maria regarding a parent of an adult client providing services to their adult son or daughter, such as floor time. Do they need to provide credentials?
Do folks understand that question? Or do they need more clarification? David, you want to try it? I see you shaking your head, or Sheila.
Yeah, it would depend on how that is listed in the plan. So if you're talking about something that is a formal therapy, the FMS provider will be required to confirm that the person providing the therapy has the appropriate credential. So if you have nursing in your plan, the nurse is going to need to provide a copy of their licensure. If you're using a service that's typically expected to be under a behavior service provider or something else, they're going to require that certification. If the parent is simply doing support activities and it's not listed in one of those specified licensed areas, then no. So when you said floor time, it kind of changed my answer a little bit. If the parent is providing support to the adult child, they can be paid for that. But if they're doing something that's considered a licensed activity, they would need to at the very least be supervised by a person with the licensure and that agency being paid.
Great. All right, Linda Chan Rapp, our friend, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for letting me ask some questions. For the panelists, thank you so much for sharing it. You guys are like an answer to prayer. We really need you in each of our regional centers. So thank you very much for what you're doing. It's exciting that you are on board and you get it. As a member of a local advisory committee, how would you like the volunteer advisory committee to support what you're doing or complement what you're doing? How can we better partner together?
Great question. I'm going to make Silvia do this because Silvia is such a good partner of her local advisory committee. Go ahead, Silvia.
Well, I think getting involved with understanding the barriers of the regional center, what they're facing, and helping brainstorm the idea. Sometimes we're in the trenches all day long, that the committee members may give us an idea that we haven't thought of before. So getting involved, participating in meetings, we have, like Judy said, we're working with Disability Voices United to train not only our committee members, but also our staff. And so together we have created goals for ourselves. And so as a committee member, I would suggest that you start maybe working with your committee to get more involved, having meetings with your regional center to understand what barriers they're seeing and their process that they have in place.
Okay, I have a follow up. Well, it's actually not it's actually another question, but it's very short. How would you bust the myth that there is no real difference between the traditional services versus self-determination program, except that self-determination program is a whole lot more work?
Who wants to take that? Michele, go ahead, Michele.
Something that we do at our regional center is we spotlight different consumers throughout a weekly newsletter that goes out. And so self-determination consumers are in the spotlight, so we can actually talk about ways that their services are working. And so that's just a way that we can start sharing, different things that are working for people versus, and at the same time, it might be one week in somebody in traditional, and then the next week be someone in self-determination, but we're trying to share what is actually happening and what the services that our people are getting in self-determination.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to answer either of Linda's questions?
I would say that to remember that in self-determination, you're not tied to the traditional purchase of service guidelines. So there are guidelines that may prevent a family from having a particular service, but in self-determination, you're not tied to those guidelines. So you can use them in a way that will fit your life better.
Great. All right, I'm going to come to Kira. Everybody welcome Kira to our staff. Yay, Kira. Kira is getting trained today to help do the work that Ed's been doing for a long time. Ed is not leaving, don't worry, she's not going anywhere, but there are times when Ed is taking vacations. And so Kira will be here to help out. Kira, do you have the next question?
I do, Judy. The next question is from Annie Kim. And it says, my daughter is not able to participate in summer camps this summer because the summer camps and short-term swimming programs do not want to register to FMS as a vendor. Can you tell me any solutions for this issue? Thank you.
Boy, we get that question almost every single SDP Connect. And I'm wondering if you as participant choice specialists have come up with any recommendations or suggestions for folks. This is an FMS issue. I mean, everybody should know, because I know we have a few FMSs on today, is that a month from today, 4 weeks from today, I should say, we are going to be talking about FMS as the entire SDP Connect. It's going to be all about the FMS and how we can work through some of the issues folks are having and some of the issues that they're having with regional centers and with DDS and all that kind of stuff. So anybody have any, so what we're hearing from a lot of families is that they want to have these really great programs in the community that are fully integrated, but they've never heard of a regional center. They've never heard of an FMS. They just want you to go online, put in a credit card and enroll for these programs. And many of the FMSs are not using credit cards. So I'm wondering if any of you have any solutions. Sheila, are you unmuted?
Yeah, so I don't have any easy solutions, but I think, keep squawking is one of the pieces of advice I would provide. I did hear from DDS at our last check-in that they're hyper aware of this issue and they're trying to figure out some ways to make it better. And it is also, it's not just an FMS issue because of the difficulty with reimbursements. And so I think the other option would be see if there's a way that you could assist the camp or whatever it is to complete the needed paperwork. It may be that it's about the amount of work and not knowing. And in that case, maybe the person or the family member or the independent facilitator could offer to assist with that if in some way. But I think keep sharing that frustration with your advisory committees, with the state council, with DDS, with regional centers. Just keep, every time it comes up, make sure everybody knows.
Thanks, Sheila. Go ahead, Liz.
Our participant choice specialists are going into the community. So when we have these problems with the agencies or just people not knowing, because they don't even know what a regional center is.
Right.
So they're going in and telling them, here's what the regional center is. This is the information about VMRC. Look through our webpage, see who we are. Then we explain the self-determination program and how it's growing, how it's a great opportunity for their business to provide that, and that we can share their information with them if other families have that need. And they see it as, okay, this is something that we can start doing in the future. But we do have the participant choice specialists that are going out there and having those conversations with the community so they know what it is, and they do help with the paperwork.
Thanks, Liz. I'm going to go to Elizabeth Gomez next because she texted me a question she wanted me to ask. I'm like, no, you go ask it. So go ahead, Elizabeth.
Hi, Judy, and thank you to everyone here and to the panel. I just wanted to bring a question that I think is really heavy on my heart right now, and that has to do with the participant choice specialists. For us, like Judy was saying, our hope that things will move and change a little bit, because there are a lot of barriers right now. I call them roadblocks to self-determination. But I gotta say that my question is this: for families who have always been in our disparity numbers, right? Families who have very small POSs and they haven't had any services in the traditional system. Transitioning to SDP for them is this big, really important step for them. But one of the things that we're finding is that they're facing bigger roadblocks than anybody else. So when they're being asked to bring them up and get them a few services to get assessments done, assessments that are putting families into 3, 4, 5 months behind, that causes a huge barrier. And I would think that so my question to you is, what are you planning? What is the plan? What are you doing to help these families move into self-determination without having to face so many barriers? They already came from a place from a lot of barriers. How do we transition them without having to face the barriers and even more in self-determination? That's just one of my questions. I have so many, but that's one.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Who wants to start with that? Silvia, go ahead.
I'll take that. I heard you say talk about assessments and also services that are exceptional. When the family has a service that has to go through an exception staffing, we do have to make sure that we get all of that information and we do our due diligence to get everything that we need to do a thorough assessment for the whole year. That way we're not just giving 6 months and reopening the budget after 6 months the way that it would be done in traditional service. So we're making sure that we're assessing in the beginning so that we determine if that's a service that we can put in for 12 months. And we do know that for assessments, it's taking a long time. And so what we're doing is we're asking the families, do you want to wait to get an assessment, or can we give you the funds for an assessment and you find a vendor? And it doesn't even have to be a North LA vendor. As long as it's a vendor in any of the 21 regional centers, go and get an assessment and bring it back to us. And we definitely will reopen the budget and add those funds to the budget. So we're adding this new process, or we added it a few months ago, so that we don't have delays of people waiting around for 5-6 months.
Have you been finding any of you from the regional centers that people who are required to do that, it's hard to find a vendor to do an assessment, because why would they do it? Most of these vendors who do assessments are doing it because they are seeing business at the back end. So they do an assessment on behavior, let's say, and they write in, oh, this person needs 10 hours a week of behavior therapy. And then there's the assumption that they will become the behavioral provider, right? In self-determination, there is no such guarantee on the back end. And so it's hard to find them to do it. So are you having those issues?
Well, you know what? I actually had meetings with our vendors and educating them on SDP, and they were actually happy to learn that they can just do an assessment and move on. What was causing the delay is that some of our vendors were trying to find the staff before they even commit to an assessment. And that was the delay. So now that they know that the families want the assessment, they're not necessarily going to use them, then they're more open to doing the assessment and moving on.
Got it. I saw Liz, I saw your hand up. Go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, I was going to say, just like Silvia, it's the staff. It's our vendors are just, I mean, they have lost staff right with COVID. And the requirements for the vaccine, we just saw a lot of staff, just quit. And that has been the biggest barrier. We don't have the staff to meet the needs of either the services under the vendor care or the assessments. So we're doing the same thing. We're adding the cost for the assessments. And if one of the vendors can do it and the family is selecting a vendor, then we'll just make the change. Or if they want to choose somebody else to do it, then that's fine as well. But we're adding the cost and the budget, and then we're doing a budget change.
What services is everybody requiring people to get assessments for? Because it's certainly not every service, right?
No, it's like ILS services, supportive living services, if there's behavioral services, those kind of things.
And it's only when people are starting those services for the first time is there an assessment. Okay, right. The assessments exist, and those requirements for the assessments are also in the traditional system, correct? So if somebody needs to get ILS in the traditional system, they have to get an assessment before they can start. Okay. I don't really understand, honestly, I do not understand why there needs to be assessments even in the traditional system. I know you guys don't write the rules, but it becomes a barrier even in the traditional system for people to begin services. But Sheila, I saw you unmute.
Well, one of the possible reasons for assessments is that it helps to craft the goals and the objectives and how many hours the vendor would take to address those with the person. And so it helps the service coordinator understand what exactly is needed, but it also creates that understanding of what they're going to do. And that varies from person to person. So even with supported living, some people need help with their grocery shopping, other people don't, some people, whatever. So it just helps to outline all of that stuff. And so a service coordinator, a skilled service coordinator who knows a person pretty well might have a good sense of that from a conversation with them, but others will not have as much of that information. And so having that come from the vendor can be very helpful. The other thing I was just going to put in there is that we do require assessments and or estimates whenever somebody wants to do any kind of accessibility modification to a home or a vehicle or things along, which we would normally require anyway. So we don't add that money till we get an actual, estimate or two of what that would cost to do.
Yeah. So I think where both Elizabeth and I are coming from is not so much that we are fundamentally opposed to assessments, but we have to have a streamlined way to do it so that it happens relatively quickly. So maybe that's an advocacy thing, Elizabeth, you and I can work on, is how do we create a set of vendors, of businesses, therapists, whoever, whose entire job it is to do assessments in the self-determination program and get it done and get it out the door quickly. So that's something we should talk about. Did you want to say something else, Elizabeth?
Yeah,
go ahead.
Can I add something? I did, Judy. I'm sorry. I did wanted to say something about the assessments, because the the vendors currently have waiting lists that are very long in the traditional system. So even if you just say that it's for SDP, they're actually saying that they're not going to do the assessments because you're not a priority. You're not going to keep the service. So a lot of the times they just don't, you know, they put you even further down on the list for the assessments. But also not all regional centers are giving you the budget to do the assessment or even allowing you to do the assessment. So that's not really something that's for all the, you know, the regional centers.
But it should be. These are the great examples here that we should be asking for at all regional centers. Okay, we have many people who have their hands up there, and many people have written in the chat, and we have 13 minutes left because we always end exactly at 6 because that is when we lose our interpreters. I apologize in advance that we will not get to your questions, but we will try to get to them in future meetings. So keep your questions brief, and then I'm only going to call on one person to answer them so we get through a bunch. Go ahead, Connie. Oh, you just muted yourself. Do it again.
Thank all the
There you go.
participant-directed people there.
Wait, Harvey, you were muted when you started talking, so start again.
Okay, I'll remember it. Okay, I want to really thank all the participant-directed people there. They are the future. This is a program that's not going to go away, and we will persevere, whatever's happening. I promise you that.
We just want to say this is a great.
I have a 54-year-old son going into his 3rd year. We've been doing this for over 50 years, and I give you a sincere thank you.
Yeah, I feel like we have a team, and we're not in this alone, and that makes me really happy. And Sheila, you absolutely.
There's a Jewish word called kvel.
Sheila, when you said the foundation of self-determination is a plan, a person-centered plan, you had me by hello. So I think that everybody needs to know that, because all we hear is the IPP has to have the goal in it or you won't get it funded. Let's not lose the hopes and dreams. So great job, everybody.
Thank you.
Really happy. It's so depressing on how the rollout is so slow. This is a really happy day. Thanks.
Thank you.
So glad. Okay. Judy Wang, go ahead and unmute yourself. Judy, are you there? All right, not seeing you. Ricardo Del Martinez, go ahead.
Oh, hi, sorry,
Judy.
this is Judy.
Go ahead.
I have to figure out which button. Okay, sorry. So I just had just 3 very short questions. Because I went to the orientation last week, and so I'm brand new to self-determination. Does the consumer have to wait until they're age 22 and have their case transferred to the adult unit before they can even start this process?
Definitely no. Everyone in unison is putting their heads together. Who wants to answer that? Angie, Liz, Brendali, who wants to do that?
No.
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 Okay. That's different from what they told me at orientation last week. Yeah, I wanted to confirm that.
What regional center are you, Judy?
Regional Center, East Bay in Northern California.
Okay, Regional Center of East Bay is wrong. Go ahead, correct them, Angie.
I was saying we have somebody as young as 4 years old working on their spending plan right now.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. Okay, yeah, because if we have to wait until he gets transferred to the adult, we got to start with a new service coordinator, case manager, which might be a blessing because the one he has right now is brand new to Regional Center and has no idea what she's doing. So, yeah, so that's why I was a little confused as to when this can even start. The other question I have is because, my experience is really helping my son through all his lifetime of special education, but all the services he's had, both in the home program and outside. Does self-determination require a progress report to demonstrate the effectiveness of a service, whether it be a 6-month or an annual progress report, in order to get renewed funding or servicing?
Great question. We've also had a lot of conversation about this, Judy. Who wants to try to answer that? the evil progress report. Dave, I'm going to make David do it because I feel like San Diego Regional Center, because of the amazing Susie Reckworth, does it the right way. So I'm going to make you answer it.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to. Thank you for calling on me. Yeah, so short answer is no. I mean, no progress report. That's not something that we're doing. I mean, if on more nuanced services, like let's say on a like on a behavior service, there could be times if we're paralleling to what we would fund in traditional services that we would I don't like the term progress report, that we would be asking for information and data just in terms of monitoring health and safety. But as a blanket answer for progress reports for services, no, that's not something that we're asking for.
So other regional centers are, go ahead, Silvia.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, but it varies between regional centers. At North LA, we do ask for a progress report, but it doesn't have to be like data driven. It can even be a report from the parent, meaning a verbal report telling us exactly how was the goal worked on, addressed, and then what was the outcome of that goal. But for like services like behavioral services, we do ask for a little bit more information because we want to make sure that when we're assessing the need, we are really capturing the service that's most appropriate for the consumer.
Thank you. All right, Ricardo doesn't seem to be back on the screen. Tim, you've already asked a question, so I'm sorry, I'm discriminating against you now. I favored you before. Karen Gutierrez, go ahead.
Hi, I actually have a couple questions.
Just only one, Karen.
Okay, so then the main one I think would be, I have a 10-year-old daughter right now. We're trying to go and get her a tricycle, and it's getting very hard because their insurance won't pay for it. So I went through Regional Center and they're making me jump through different hoops as far as getting proof of the denial. If I had self-determination, would I be able to make these get these things without having to jump through those hoops, or do I still have to find the denial and get all this paperwork done beforehand?
Yeah, that other ugly generic resources question, this is the first time it's come up. Who wants to take that? How do you all handle generic resources at your regional centers? Go ahead, Brendali.
If you want to add that to the budget, we do have to do the same as in traditional. It's the same rule as in traditional. We have to go the traditional route, which is getting all that information, the denial and all of that. Now, if you don't want to add that to your budget and you just want to use whatever is already in your budget and put that on your spending plan, I believe you can do that. We would need to talk to you. I mean, it's a conversation, and I think it's a case-by-case situation. But in order to build that budget, in order to add those funds into your budget, it's the same as in traditional.
Sheila?
Yeah, and just kind of tagging onto that. So if you had money in the spending plan, you wanted to pay for that, it would be incredibly helpful if we had something in the plan that you and the independent facilitator, I've checked with insurance, they won't pay for it. Not so much because regional center absolutely has to have a copy of a denial, but just so that we can say the generic has been discussed or attempted, and also because the FMSs are now having to look for that. And so we might let it go if it's just, I'm going to buy this tricycle in my plan, but an FMS agency is also on the hook for that. So they may need to have, so I just, if it's written in the plan, it's one less thing for them to have to look back for.
Thank you. All right, going to go to Claudia Cardenas, or Cardenas.
Yes, hello. Yes, I am actually a parent with a child has been in self-determination second year. And my main question is my regional center is asking me to apply for Deeming for personal assistant and respite. And I am, I'm waiting for information to do that. So I am on board to do that. But my concern is they've only approved 3 months of these services for my self-determination. My concern is that this money will run out and the deeming process will take long. How do I ensure my son continues to get these services if my budget runs out?
So I'm just going to explain, this may be the last question because this is a complicated one, but I just want to explain that people in the self-determination program, if they're eligible, are required, regardless of age, to be on Medi-Cal. I know you were using the term deeming, which is a very technical term. It's actually institutional deeming, which is a terrible thing, but it's a horrible phrase, but it's basically for children who would not be eligible for Medi-Cal based on their income, but they are eligible based on the fact that they have a disability and the level of their disability. And so you were required to be in Medi-Cal, on Medi-Cal, to be able to be in the self-determination program. Now, how are you all handling it? Does anybody want to talk about how you're handling it for folks who have not entered Medi-Cal yet? Have you faced that?
At North LA, I'll take that, Sylvia. At North LA, what we do is we offer the bridge funding, like this individual I think mentioned. So we added for, let's say we added for 3 months. We'll check in, and if it's still not something that you have received, we can revisit your budget and reopen it and add additional funds until you have that Medi-Cal.
Got it. That was a great, fast answer. Thank you. All right, we probably have time for one more. Claudia, did you want to ask a question? Claudia Marrón.
Sí, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Claudia Marrón y tengo una pregunta. Y también tengo, nomás quería mencionarle las dos barreras. Yo estoy en segundo año de autodeterminación para mi hijo y las barreras que me he encontrado con este programa, una es la de la FMS. Estas agencias no están preparadas. Y otra cosa también que me he enfrentado a otra barrera es los cambios de las guías que están teniendo en autodeterminación. Por esta situación de que las FMS no están preparadas y las guías, mi hijo no recibió el año pasado varios servicios a causa de que las FMS tienen sus propias pólizas y no quieren pagar a ciertos proveedores, que también los proveedores tienen sus propias pólizas. Entonces eso fue una frustración para mí de ver que había un presupuesto de gastos en un portal, en la FMS, y que por causa de las pólizas de la FMS mi hijo no haya recibido los servicios. Esa es una, y también muchas cosas tienen que pedirle permiso al centro regional, como por ejemplo, mi hijo fue a una clase de baile en una clase general y no funcionó esa clase. Cuando quise buscar otra clase, que es integración con discapacidad, integración general, no pudieron por sus pólizas. Yo vivo en el Antílope Valley, tenemos muy pocos recursos aquí, entonces yo no puedo andar escogiendo ciertos lugares para la terapia de mi hijo. Entonces, bueno, una pregunta que tengo, ¿el proceso de autodeterminación cambió o sigue siendo el mismo protocolo del proceso de autodeterminación? El protocolo del programa de autodeterminación, de primero hacer un PCP plan, después hacer un plan después hacer un presupuesto de gastos, después un plan de gastos. ¿Cambió este protocolo para el segundo año?
Okay, thank you, Claudia. You will be our last question. For those of you who were not listening in on the English channel, then you likely missed the question. But the bottom line, she talked a lot about having issues with her FMS. But the bottom line question at the end was, have things changed in the second year? In the first year, you do your person-centered plan, then your budget, and then your spending plan. Does it change when you get into your next year? Is it different? Sheila, go ahead and answer that one.
It's not all that different. We do the budget calculation slightly differently based on the year you just finished. And so Here, we use a little bit different tool to determine the upcoming year's budget, but it is still based on traditional services. And some people are opting to switch FMS agencies between plan years. It's much easier to do it at the end of a plan year and not in the middle of a plan year. Here, the biggest changes have been in what the FMS agencies are doing, or being asked to do.
I'm sorry, Claudia, it is 6:01 and I'm sorry to have to mute you. We had so many questions in the chat that we never got to, and another 4 people who never got their questions asked. We apologize, but we are here every 2 weeks. We promise we're here every 2 weeks. And 2 weeks from today, part of what we're going to discuss is the state budget. We want to let everybody know that it's almost certain that the cost of the FMS will no longer have to be part of your spending plan. So that's really great news. We'll talk about that and a few other things. And I think we'll leave a lot of time for questions and try to answer some of the questions we didn't get to today. So before we leave, I want to really thank our great panelists, Liz Diaz from Valley Mountain, Silvia Haro from North LA, Sheila Keys from Redwood Coast, Brendali Maldonado from East LA, Michele Poaster from Valley Mountain, Angie Shear from Valley Mountain, Randall Smith from Westside, and David Webb-Rex from San Diego. You guys are really gonna help make this program a success. We really appreciate you. We still have people coming on and it's 6:02. So we thank you all, and we will be back in 2 weeks to talk about the budget and answer more of your questions. Then we'll be back in 4 weeks to talk about FMSs, which we know you all want to. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.